We're on your Instagram still.
Oh.
Probably gonna regret getting that off, but
Hello.
Match education basketball game.
here we are. No questions have been asked
What
yet.
are we
It's really
following?
awkward. I fixed my hair a couple times.
Are you staying, Jacob? Do I go live, Justin?
Go live. Jacob is standing.
Hmm?
He's gonna dance in the background, make everyone uncomfortable. Oh, this is live.
Hi, Ian.
Do you see Anne?
Yeah.
Someone want to verify on a computer that we're good?
My sister said that was amazing.
We're streaming.
Oh,
Sarah
shoot.
definitely
But it's saying our
is-
chat's having issues.
Let me
Alright.
check.
Hello.
Oh, there's one person.
All right. So can we start? Can you all just go and introduce yourselves again?
Ooh, can I fix my hair?
I'm Jacob.
I'm going
That's my
live.
introduction. Oh, okay. We need to do introductions
Well,
again.
hold
Okay.
on, because Sarah's in the back.
That's fine. Okay, that's fine. Caleb's here, so introduce
Gross. All right. What's up, guys? Teens in Print after podcast Q&A. Whoa. I'm Jacob.
I'm Nathan.
Really? I'm Malia. I'm Mina.
All right. Hello, I'm Jasmine. I'm staff. I'm off screen. But can you all start off with giving us a sense? I think this is Jacob, please. This is something that we talked about in the trailer. But I think something that people I know have been asking me about is kind of why did you all decide that this was something you wanted to do? As in us having a podcast and then also just from the sense of wanting to be part of it.
Well, because it was a flex. No. So basically, the whole idea for a podcast started, I think, a year or two ago, a year and a half, maybe. Me and one of the people who used to work here, Masha, we love you, Masha, had this idea, or she had this idea. I kind of just got roped in. For us to have a podcast where we talk about current events and like pop culture and stuff that affected teens. And while it didn't start when she was here, we never let the idea go, and now here we are. Little late, but we made it eventually. We have a really cool podcast, and yeah.
You had a question come in, so I'll pause. When does, and this is actually a good question that I don't know the answer to, when does the school term end for you all before the Christmas break? When does that start?
My term doesn't end before Christmas.
Your term doesn't end, but when do you go on to break?
Friday.
So you're almost done.
Yeah.
That was the question. We answered it.
Such a
Two
weird
more
question.
days.
School
I
ends.
asked that question. Google it.
I actually
it's a
wanted
great
to know
question.
that though, so I feel like that's a helpful
You
question.
said this is an interesting.
So yeah,
This
thanks
is-
Polly for that question that I also needed to
No,
know.
I'm trying
Um,
to figure out what Alyssa.
all right.
Hope Alyssa's watching this. Like, she's
What how was this process the same as you expected and how was it different?
Well, I actually used my metaphysical powers to foresee all of this.
Yes.
No, it was a lot more work. It was a lot more behind the scenes stuff. I kind of just thought I'd show up, yell some ridiculous things into a microphone, and then go home, take a nap, come back, and it would be done. But no, we all put in a lot of work.
I definitely, too expected it to be a little bit easier. Hearing myself stutter is really hard because when I hear my voice for at least more than a minute, I start to go crazy. And I think over the process of making the first episode, I've gotten a lot more comfortable with my own voice and all my stuttering. I did expect it to be a lot easier, and so the learning curve of the first what you say will probably be in the final thing, but also so much things needed to be cut and edited, and never really expected that.
In a way, I think it was pretty cool. Like when I first became an editor, I think this sort of idea of a podcast coming, I think had already been established. So when I first joined, it was kind of like, this is what we're doing. Welcome aboard. And then I was just like immediately swung into it. And it was pretty cool though. Like just doing this podcast, I've learned a lot. I feel like I've learned a lot of, multimedia things through Tip. I just think it's pretty cool.
I know we barely started, but I actually thought this was going to be a lot harder. Like when I was envisioning it, I kind of expected it to be more like high stakes, intense, and just like me being nervous the whole time, like having these scripts and everything. But it felt more like a conversation with friends, like just a way to just express ourselves and express why we were here and tell stories, and then doing like the editing work behind the scenes. So it was a lot less stressful than I thought it would be. So that was a relief. I was imagining it to be really like high stakes and a lot of pressure, but I'm actually just handling it better than I thought I would.
Definitely. I guess this is kind of a 3-part question about what you have learned. And I'm thinking about that from the sense of what have you learned about journalism? What have you learned about kind of like presentational speaking, quote unquote? And what have you learned on like the technology multimedia side?
I learned that I'm very loud and that I speak too closely to the microphone. I think in terms of the multimedia side of journalism, I think that this isn't like a resource that I would have thought of previously. I think that I'm saying I think too much. I think that this is really good both for us individually as people who are trying to build up that resume to get into college, but also for Teen Sprint as an organization, because this gives us just one more facet to force our way into people's lives and make them love us.
I've learned a lot about the way I talk because I've always talked in live time, like debates and school stuff, but I never really listened to recordings of myself. And it's been a ride listening to how I sound and little details about the way I speak. Sometimes I do get annoyed by it, but also I've learned that I should finish my sentences because I struggle. Like, I'll start talking. I think I just did it right now. I'll like start talking about one thing and then something pops in my head and then I'll start talking about that. So definitely it does help to improve my public speaking skills.
Is this question the top like content of like tip or like the podcast?
The podcast.
I don't know. I feel like the podcast, when it comes to talking to a group of people or something like that, it eliminates that sense of anxiety you have when you're talking in front of a crowd. Like I know there's going to be people who listen to this, but like they're not in front of me. So it's really cool to be able to like get my actual voice out there and like not be afraid to say what I want to say.
I don't know. I guess I learned a lot about, kind of like Mina said, like about myself and like how I communicate things and how to kind of cooperate with the process, because sometimes how things go isn't how you normally talk. Like how you're supposed to like recognize like the hand symbols when something means you gotta wrap up this, and like when this gesture means this, and like writing like you have to just follow like an unspoken type of schedule when you're doing it, and you know it kind of keeps you on your toes, and so that's been fun.
Question from Scarlett. What podcasts do you listen to, and were any of them kind of an inspiration for you wanting to be involved in making this podcast?
I'm gonna be honest. I think the only podcast I listen to regularly is Cold Ones, which we don't do so much of what they do. It's our podcast is very conversational, but I wouldn't say that we necessarily draw inspiration from anyone else's. Not like straight up, anyways. That was an
Okay.
statement.
I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm more of a reader, but does this count? What is it Money Matters or Dave something? Yeah, I just like listening to him because whenever he's taking the phone calls and like scolding people about the way they use their money, is just something like just funny to listen to. So a lot of the times, the podcast I listen to is something that I don't really have to pay attention to, and it's just very lively. I can like tell how he feels, and like even though it's just him and the person who's on audio, I feel like there's a lot of people around him. So I think I want to see that more in our future episodes. A lot of that liveliness.
I think the only podcast I listen to right now it's called Teenager Therapy, and it's pretty much just a group of friends that just have conversations. Sometimes conversations are really deep and like they'll get you in your feelings, and then there's other times where like you just like there's certain episodes that are like play in the background when you're lonely or when you're bored, and just so you can like have that sense of people being there. I wouldn't say it was a big influence in this, but I would say that we have the same effect on other people, like, you know, just that sense of comfort in hearing people's voices for people who are close to your age.
When I first heard this question and I thought of the podcast I listened to, I was like, it doesn't relate at all. But now, after listening to everyone's answers, I realized that it kind of does. I only really listen to one podcast besides like podcasts of celebrities that I like featuring on it, and it's called Sibling Rivalry. And it's just about two drag queens talking to each other and just like getting into arguments and stuff. But they have like this structure, like today we're going to be talking about this topic, this topic, this topic, and we're going to do an intro here. And like they're really casual with it, no, because they've been friends for a really long time. And so they're able to be casual with it while also sticking to like their bullet point list. So I feel like that's kind of similar to what we do in the sense that like we're not just reading off a script the whole time. We're like, we have topics, these categories, and we kind of like talk within them wherever those conversations go.
Definitely. Question from Sarah. Do you
Which Sarah?
Poulter? Do you envision yourself interviewing folks from the community, and who would be your like dream guest to bring onto the podcast, celebrity or otherwise?
Yeah, definitely both when we originally wrote a proposal and when we were discussing it as an e-board, we had ideas to like bring in community people, but also bring in staff writers from like the Monday program and the OB crew.
Yeah.
I don't actually know what their formal name is, but they
O'Brien.
were the O'Brien. I mean,
They have the name of the school.
do they not get like a cool club name? Like we have a cool club
Their
name.
journalism club.
All right, we're the e-board. Our name is cooler than theirs. Step it up, OB. But yeah,
Whoa.
yeah, we wanted to bring on staff writers both so we can be like, hey, look at all the cool stuff you get to do if you stay an editor. So staff writers, look at all the cool stuff you get to do if you stay an editor. But also like bringing in community people would be really cool. Like Sarah Poulter, if you want to like, be on a podcast, like you're like right over there. Like I can see you right now. You have the fight. You're actually on Facebook right now. That's kind of hurtful.
Oh, wow.
Oh, dear.
Watching the podcast.
Oh dear.
We're gonna publicly shame you.
Let's
But also celebrities we could have here. Aside from Sarah Poulter, I don't know. I'd like to talk to obscure band members and do that stuff. As far as I'm close to that, but surely.
I mean,
Gerard
we
Way, where
could
you at?
maybe talk about how does music relate to kind of teenage life and the connections with subculture and mental health. And yeah,
Someone drop Gerard Way's phone number in the chat.
you've written a proposal before. Write a proposal again. Why is that relevant to what we do at Teens and Fran? Anyway, you know.
What? I was supposed to say something?
you dream guest to bring onto the podcast.
I think someone in this community. Yeah, I want to bring on Sarah Robbins
Robbins.
because I like Sarah, and me and Sarah get along. So I don't think she's watching this right now, but I'd also like to bring Masha because this is a lot of the things that she wanted to happen, and it's finally happening now. And I think that when Masha and Jacob were just brainstorming this whole thing, and I was just like, supporting from the sidelines. I want her to see it, and I want her to feel proud. I don't want to get emotional, but
No,
Yeah.
This is the perfect time to get emotional.
yeah, I want
Time for a
Masha.
cry.
Nathan, dream guest.
Oh, I don't think I have one, to be honest.
Sarah did say celebrity or otherwise, so I feel like y'all should be able to come up with someone.
I mean, we've already covered all the bases.
Maybe
Sarah
like
Rollins.
if we're talking like the topic of like team, the director of the ICA, I guess she, the ICA has wonderful team programs. So I wonder, how they feel about certain things and how art relates to teen life, mental health, and all that.
I don't really have a specific person in mind, but I think it would be cool to have like somebody in college right now, whether it be like freshman, like whatever year, because this is for teens and we're all teenagers, so I think it would be cool to have somebody who is in college come and like tell us about it a little bit and like give advice and everything, because I feel like we'd be able to relate to it more since that's where a lot of us are heading towards, and like just what to expect and things like that.
All right, 2 questions from Caleb. One.
Oh
No.
God.
I hate
Can we elect
One.
to veto them?
No, because I am the moderator.
Oh, okay.
2 questions from Caleb. 1, what are your favorite types of reading material? 2, which one of you would win in a theoretical Hunger Games?
Me.
We
talked
talked
about
I
this.
honestly think
We talked about this. I
So,
think,
Mina, why would you win the theoretical Hunger Games?
all right, I know how to farm.
True, that's big.
I've literally lived in a third world country where we had to well for water. I know a lot of basic living skills.
Yeah.
I'm not as boastful as Jacob. I think Jacob would just go in like, oh, I'm gonna win. This is gonna happen, and then everyone just gets aggravated and kills him.
I could see that happening.
I don't
too
know.
much
I would
anxiety.
trick people into relying
I'm gonna
on
get killed
me.
instantly.
I was just like,
Like,
yeah,
You put up with my boasting, you can join my crew.
no, I'm gonna kill you.
Me and Nathan are going to win the Hunger Games.
I would just like, lull everyone with a false sense of security and then just poison their cabbage or something.
can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Alright, but like, okay. If this is the Hunger Games, you will not have time to be growing cabbage. It's gonna be like, you're not gonna have time to be farming. Like, the water thing would be very useful. But like, unless you're here identifying berries,
I mean, I do have a whole encyclopedia of.
alright, then that's a solid maybe.
Mina studied.
I think on the topic of reading material, to get us off of this dark topic, thanks, Caleb. I picked up the last issue of Doomsday Clock today. I read a little bit of it. It's worth the wait. Very good. I read a lot of comic books because I'm a dork. That.
And that. Reading material. Favorite types of reading material. Others.
Reading material. It takes. I mean, I'm reading the Song of Solomon right now, and I have read The Handmaid's Tale, but it's a lot of. It's really good. You should read it.
It's so good.
But I do like reading a lot of like product reviews and articles because I'll just be bored, and it's just something to not get me bored. And it's like nice seeing terrible reviews sometimes,
I love terrible reviews.
and just
I
like
write them.
yeah, I just love reading terrible reviews because saving me time and money. So a lot of short stories, short stuff, because I don't really have that much of an attention span.
I love memoirs.
This is very on brand.
I mean, though, right now I'm reading the sequel to Call Me by Your Name, Find Me. I'm that right now. I also just bought 2 books. I bought a book called The Liars Club, memoir, and I also picked up a YA novel called They Both Die in the End. Also very
I've heard
good.
of that.
It's a pretty good book.
That is often how things end.
That's so true.
But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Just memoirs and sad.
Oh. Malia?
I'm usually really into realistic fiction, which everyone thinks is boring when I say that, but I just like Justin's like, well,
everyone's
like, I
realistic fiction.
no, because that's all I want to read. I like reading about real people's problems, but like without it being a documentary, because you don't get all the details in a documentary. You don't get like their mindset. I like reading about things first person, where they're like in high school or something, like low stakes stuff, where they're just like in high school, like waiting for a basketball thing. Like I like boring stuff like that because it's relatable. But I'm also getting really into history novels. Like I'm reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, and I'm reading The Black Klansman. So, and I don't usually like historical books, but I'm kind of venturing down that path because they're really interesting.
Toni Morrison, I think, is an author that you would like. I just like listening to Toni Morrison, her documentaries and her like interviews. Yeah, I love Toni Morrison.
What are your? This is another question from Caleb.
Oh my God.
What
I'm
are
scared.
What are your favorite subjects to write articles about?
This is obvious for me.
All right. What are your favorite subjects to write articles about, Mina?
Environment, plants like houseplants, flowers, agriculture. Anything that has to do with dirt, the ground, and pretty flowers.
I think mine is also pretty obvious. I pretty much, for a while, I did most of the tips A&E section. I still pretty much read a lot of A&E stuff. I do a lot of reviews. I've written about Star Wars like 4 times now, because that's just how I be. But yeah, definitely reviews. I find them fun to write. Caleb, you know me. You know what I'm like when I don't like something. Very opinionated. And I think sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, my opinion is valid. And criticisms.
Mostly anything gay. and anything justice related. I love using my voice to create change. So
Love it.
This is something that I haven't really been writing, but when I've only written 2, but whenever I write profiles, I feel like I have the most fun doing it. Like that was something I've never done until like this summer at SJI. And like once, it was never something I would have thought of doing, but once I started doing it, I really started enjoying it. Like the process in general, like doing the interview, recording it, and then going to otter.ia and just like doing the whole process. It's so IA, my bad. It's so fun to me. Just like
Hey, Malia.
did I say that the first time?
no, you said I.
No, both times you said
Oh,
I.
I thought I said AI the first time, and then you were correcting me to say I. I'm so
No, I
sorry.
was just repeating you.
Oh, yo, you were repeating? So you confused me. Okay, cool. So profiles are my favorite things to write, even though I've only written 2.
Hey, Malia.
Stop.
What's SJI?
What?
What's
Oh,
SJI?
it's our
Side
summer.
Yeah, what is SJI for our listeners?
Summer Journalism
Summer
Institute,
Journalism Institute.
where we do it in the summer and we get paid, which used to be a unique thing, but now we get paid year
What is
round.
this it that you talk about?
What?
Okay.
Yeah, we do it. It's like not that much information.
I'm sorry.
Malia.
I'm sorry. You take it away.
Journalism summer camp, but you get paid. You go on field trips, and it's a good time. And there's snacks.
Just step
There's
over.
breakfast
Okay,
catered
but I'm
every
also- but I'm
day.
Wait,
also
you guys
there.
had breakfast? Yeah.
Yes.
Did I not basically say that?
You didn't say
You
that
did.
at
I
all.
said it was
Anyway. All right. So, what I think will be, we're gonna do 2 more questions because we run long, which I feel fine about. But 2 more questions. Our last question from Caleb.
Thanks, Caleb.
What is your favorite? Malia, can you not text on cam?
It's my mom.
We're texting Caleb.
What are your favorite subjects? No, Bart. What is your favorite form of comedy?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that humor that you see on Twitter that you have to like take a second to, and then you make sure that no one's also reading. Then you like laugh, like the humor that goes.
We're
Like-
a pretty dead inside bunch, I think.
The humor that like anyone else would read that and
Be concerned.
yes.
Yeah, if someone
literally.
saw what you were laughing at, they'd be like, honey, are you Okay,
Mhm.
that's where we're at as a people.
I also like
get a
puns a
question from-
lot, so
That's a punishable offense.
uh-huh.
We have a question from Knox.
Sarah Poulter has reminded us that at SJI we also do career exploration,
Thank you, Sarah.
which I said, good reminder, Sarah. Our SJI students also get to visit several different professional workplaces to do some career exploration.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
Those are all facts.
All right, last question I have for you is, what? Obviously, there are a lot of things that need to be decided, and as someone who's in the room when the decisions get made, I know a lot of these things haven't been decided yet. But do you have any sense of things that you would at least like to do next with the podcast? What are the goals?
More of them.
More.
So just as like clarify, we have bounced around the idea of doing these big ones every cycle the paper comes out, so quarterly, and then also smaller ones in between. I believe the goal was once a month, just as like not once a month. It was
We didn't decide something. Yeah,
It was
something like
It
that.
was like whenever we could make the happens. But idea being that we would either like go in depth on a certain topic, certain news story, but it probably wouldn't be the whole cast. It would be like a shorter, more like compact, who, what, when, where, why, and then we'll just like go off because we're teenagers and we have no idea what we're doing. That's a lie. We have all the idea of what we're doing. Ha ha ha. But yeah, it would just be shorter form, kind of more like news focused content than our roundtable discussions.
Other thoughts on?
Yeah, nothing we're not already anticipating. Just like the big ones, and then we have the little ones with like just like maybe the news or like something like I don't know what's it called, like novelty. Like what's it called when it's like a not that deep story. It's like a quirky little like side. thing.
Yeah, just like
Just like novelty stuff.
yeah.
I said novelty.
I know. I was telling you that was
Why did nobody tell me
I
that
said
before?
novelty.
No,
Yes.
I
that's
said
the right
novelty,
word.
and then for 30
Here's
seconds
what
I
I
was
think.
there.
Yeah. This is going off the rails.
I think we are about 100 games.
I think that I actually like these like I wouldn't say emotionally heavy topics, but I mean I just like talking about my feelings. So I like these topics that really get you thinking and make you like actually come up with a response. And I like or at least when I listen to podcasts, I like listening to people's pretty much story. And so like it drives you deeper, like, you know, I want to learn more about them. And so I would like to keep up with these type of topics, you know, of like who we are or like and our certain like heavy opinions on things.
Well, that's cool. All right. Well, thank you. Unless you have any final thoughts.
Hello, Melissa.
Thank you. Is Alyssa here?
She like texted me this whole
Sarah
time. She's in a
Robbins
meeting.
had said something earlier, but all right.
Wait, did
Bye.
Sarah respond to what I said?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
Sarah
Sarah
said
Robbins being on our
OMG
podcast.
heart emoji. Sorry, I forgot to read that.
Take that as a yes.
All right. Well, if you
Thank you.
good night.
Peace out, guys.
Thank you.
Add me on Snap.
Thanks for coming.
788.
Follow us on social media at Teens in Print, where you can keep up to date. That's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, where you can keep up to date with what we're doing. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Click that bell to get notifications. And yeah, see you next
Take
round.
a
Oh my god, that was so uncomfortable. I stand.
Look at Malia.
That awkward.
That was